Now let us move to textual criticism, one of the most advanced and important areas in Shakespeare studies. The key idea here is that different versions of a play can produce different meanings. Shakespeare's texts are not fixed, so even small changes can affect interpretation. A major example is King Lear. This play exists in two important versions, the Quarto, 1608, and the Folio, 1623. These are not identical. In fact, there are more than 300 lines of difference between them. This leads to a critical debate. Are these two versions simply the same play with errors, or are they actually two different artistic versions of the play? This question has no simple answer and is widely discussed among scholars. Modern theory takes a very important position. Instead of treating one version as correct and the other as faulty, editors now often treat them as separate texts. Each version reflects a different stage of performance or revision. This connects back to the idea that Shakespeare's plays are shaped by theatre, not just writing. Changes may reflect performance needs, actor influence, or audience expectations. So, variation is not a problem. It is a feature of Shakespearean drama. For exams, remember this key line: textual variation reflects theatrical fluidity, not corruption. Now let us understand editorial intervention, which is a subtle but very important concept in Shakespeare studies. When we read Shakespeare today, we are not reading a completely original, untouched text. Editors play a major role in shaping what we see. They add punctuation, choose between Quarto and Folio versions, and sometimes even correct words or lines that seem unclear or inconsistent. This is important because early printed texts did not have fixed punctuation or standardized spelling. So editors make decisions to clarify meaning, but in doing so, they also influence interpretation. For example, choosing a line from the Quarto instead of the Folio in King Lear can change how a character or scene is understood. Even punctuation can affect tone and meaning. So, what we read today is not purely Shakespeare's voice. It is Shakespeare filtered through editorial choices. For exams, remember this powerful line: Shakespeare is partly created by editors. Now let us understand the important contrast between stage culture and print culture. First, stage culture. The stage is flexible. Performances can change from one show to another depending on actors, audience reaction, and context. It is also improvised to some extent. Actors may adjust tone, delivery, or even lines. Most importantly, it is live. Meaning is created in the moment of performance. In contrast, print culture is fixed. Once a text is printed, it becomes stable and does not change easily. It is edited, shaped by editors who decide the final form of the text. And it is permanent, existing as a stable document for readers. Now, the key connection. Fools and clowns belong mainly to stage culture. Their humor, timing, gestures, and interaction with the audience depend on live performance. Their full meaning cannot be captured completely on the page. On the other hand, the first Folio belongs to print culture. It tries to fix and preserve Shakespeare's plays in a stable, authoritative form. So, there is a tension between these two. Shakespeare's works originate in the flexible world of performance but are later captured in the fixed form of print. For exams, remember this key idea: Shakespeare exists between stage and print, but his true essence lies in performance. Now let us understand the printing economics behind quartos, which explains why so many different versions of Shakespeare's plays exist. Quartos were produced mainly because of a commercial printing market. There was a growing demand among the public for cheap and accessible texts. Printers wanted to make profit, so they quickly printed plays that were popular on stage. Because of this demand, printers did not always follow proper or authorized methods. Sometimes they obtained manuscripts without permission, or reconstructed texts using shorthand notes taken during performances. In some cases, they even relied on partial memory or unofficial copies. This explains why many quartos, especially bad quartos, contain errors or variations. These are not always due to carelessness, but due to the economic pressure to publish quickly and cheaply. So, the issue is not just literary, it is also commercial. For exams, remember this key line: bad quartos reflect piracy, not incompetence. Now let us understand the stay of 1600, which is a very important concept linking theatre and printing. In the year 1600, an official entry was made in the stationer's register to stay, or stop, the publication of certain plays. These included As You Like It, Much Ado About Nothing, Henry V, and Every Man in His Humour by Ben Jonson. Why was this done? The reason is economic and competitive. The acting company, the Lord Chamberlain's men, wanted to prevent piracy. If these plays were printed as quartos, rival theatre companies could easily access the scripts and perform them. So, by stopping publication, the company protected its exclusive stage rights. In simple terms, they wanted to keep the plays on the stage, not in the hands of competitors through print. This clearly shows the tension between stage culture and print culture. Theatre companies saw printed texts as a threat to their business. For exams, remember this key insight. The stay of 1600 was a protectionist strategy to prevent piracy and maintain control over theatrical performances. Now let us understand the stay of 1600, which is a very important concept linking theatre and printing. In the year 1600, an official entry was made in the stationer's register to stay, or stop, the publication of certain plays. These included As You Like It, Much Ado About Nothing, Henry V, and Every Man in His Humour by Ben Jonson. Why was this done? The reason is economic and competitive. The acting company, the Lord Chamberlain's men, wanted to prevent piracy. If these plays were printed as quartos, rival theatre companies could easily access the scripts and perform them. So, by stopping publication, the company protected its exclusive stage rights. In simple terms, they wanted to keep the plays on the stage, not in the hands of competitors through print. This clearly shows the tension between stage culture and print culture. Theatre companies saw printed texts as a threat to their business. For exams, remember this key insight. The stay of 1600 was a protectionist strategy to prevent piracy and maintain control over theatrical performances. Now let us understand the key textual scholars, often called the Big Three, who established the modern study of Shakespeare's texts. First, W. W. Gregg. He is known for defining the distinction between good and bad quartos. Gregg developed criteria to judge the reliability of early printed versions of Shakespeare's plays. This classification is still fundamental in textual studies. Next, Fredson Bowers. He is called the father of modern textual editing. Bowers developed systematic principles of textual criticism, including the idea of copy text theory, which guides how editors choose a base text when multiple versions exist. His work forms the foundation of how Shakespeare is edited and read today. Finally, A. W. Pollard. He classified Shakespearean quartos into two main groups, good quartos and bad quartos. His work helped organize and systematize the study of early printed texts. Together, these three scholars laid the foundation for modern Shakespearean textual criticism. They helped us understand how to evaluate, compare, and edit different versions of Shakespeare's plays. For exams, remember this key idea. These scholars did not just study Shakespeare, they shaped how we read Shakespeare today. Now let us understand the authorship problem, which challenges our modern idea of authorship. The key question is, did William Shakespeare control his texts? The answer is mostly no. First, Shakespeare's plays were not his personal property in the modern sense. They were owned by theatre companies, especially the Lord Chamberlain's men. Once a play was written and performed, it became part of the company's assets. Second, many plays were printed without the author's direct permission. Printers and publishers often took control of the text, especially in the commercial printing market. Shakespeare did not supervise most of these publications. This shows that the idea of an author having full control over their work is a modern concept. In Shakespeare's time, writing for the stage was more collaborative and commercial. So, For exams, remember this key insight. Shakespeare is not a modern author with full textual control, but part of a theatrical and commercial system. Now let us understand bibliographical scholarship, which is the foundation of modern Shakespeare studies. The key figure here is W. Gregg. His major contribution was to distinguish between good quartos and bad quartos. He developed methods to evaluate which early printed texts were more reliable, helping scholars move beyond simple acceptance of any single version. Another very important figure is Fredson Bowers. He took this further by developing modern principles of textual editing. His work, especially on copy text theory, established rules for how editors should choose and combine different versions of a text. Together, these scholars created a scientific and systematic approach to studying Shakespeare's texts. They showed that what we read today is not just original writing, but the result of careful comparison, selection, and editing. So, modern editions of Shakespeare are constructed through scholarly methods, not simply reproduced. For exams, remember this key line: modern Shakespeare texts are products of bibliographical scholarship. Now let us understand the key connection between Fools and textual variation, which is a very high-value exam insight. Fools' dialogues often change significantly between quarto and folio versions of the same play. This is not accidental. It is directly linked to how these roles were performed on stage. First, improvised performance. Actors playing fools and clowns had more freedom to improvise. They could add jokes, local references, or spontaneous lines during performance. Second, actor influence. Certain performers were known for their unique style, and playwrights, including William Shakespeare, often shaped or adapted the text to suit them. This means the same role could evolve over time. Third, audience interaction. Fools frequently responded to audience reactions. Their timing, wording, and even content could shift depending on how the audience reacted during live performance. Because of all these factors, when the plays were later written down or printed, these scenes were less stable compared to others. So, fool and clown scenes are often the most fluid and variable parts of Shakespeare's texts. For exams, remember this key point: clown scenes are the most unstable in textual transmission due to performance-based variation. Now let us conclude the presentation by bringing together both major ideas, fools and textual transmission. In Shakespeare's plays, fools reveal truth, while kings and authority figures often hide or distort it. In a similar way, quartos may present unstable or altered versions of the text, while the first folio attempts to preserve and stabilize Shakespeare's works. At a deeper level, Shakespeare's fools represent theatrical intelligence. They think, question, and reveal meaning through performance. At the same time, the variations between quartos and folio show that Shakespeare's plays do not exist as fixed, final texts. They are shaped continuously by actors, editors, and audiences. From the licensed fool's power to speak subversive truth, to the shifting forms of texts across different versions, we see one central idea: Shakespeare's drama resists stability. It exists as a dynamic interplay of performance, memory, and textual reconstruction. This is the final insight you should carry for exams. Shakespeare is not just a writer of texts, but a creator of living theatre that continues to evolve. As we've seen, Shakespeare's fools are not mere entertainers. They are truth-tellers, philosophers, and voices of dissent who challenge power from within the play. At the same time, the journey from quartos to the first folio reveals that Shakespeare's works are not fixed texts, but evolving performances shaped by memory, actors, editors, and audience response. So, the real takeaway is this: Shakespeare's drama lives in performance, not just on the page, where meaning is constantly created, questioned, and reimagined. If you found this breakdown helpful for your exams, make sure to watch the full series for deeper insights into Shakespeare and literary theory.